Rudy Giuliani, President Donald Trump's attorney and former mayor of New York City. You all know him and love him. So are you going to the Yankees game today?
I'm debating doing it. My son wants to play golf, or the Yankee game. I can relax now a little bit. Last weekend I was sitting there. I wasn't nervous.
Maybe a little.
Well, you never know, right?
All right. So there's a two-page letter. We got it right here that Bill Barr, the Attorney General, put out there. Among other things, he said yesterday, our progress is such that I anticipate we will be in the position to release the report, the Mueller report, of course, by mid-April, if not sooner, although the president would have the right to assert privilege over certain parts of the report. He has stated publicly he intends to defer to me, and accordingly, there are no plans to submit the report to the White House for a privileged review. So, Mr. Mayor, here you have the Attorney General asserting his independence, saying, I'm not going to run this past the White House, despite Democrats charging that he's part of a cover-up, and I'm going to get this out within the next 2 weeks, maybe sooner.
Yeah, I mean,
so what else do Democrats want?
First of all, the Democrats are making absolute fools out of themselves. I mean, the report is as clear as it can be, exoneration. I was a prosecutor for 18 years. I've never seen a letter that clear. Usually it's hedged. We can't quite reach the result where we have probable cause to get an indictment, all these other things. Or we can't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Exoneration, Mueller on obstruction says, I can't reach a decision. I don't have to charge a crime. Just can't make a decision on exoneration. Don't know why, but Attorney General Barr, Rosenstein, who started the investigation and knows as much about it as Mueller, and I think some people feel Rosenstein was very tough on the president. He's hardly going to agree to something like that. And they say complete no obstruction at all anywhere. If you think there's anything in the report that really strong goes in the other direction, you don't realize how good a lawyer Barr is, Rosenstein, and the Office of Legal Counsel in the Justice Department. So I'm very confident we can meet anything they say in the report. As far as I'm concerned, if they can put it out legally, put out all of it. All of it.
Yeah. Democrats, of course, aren't satisfied right away. They're saying, you know, we want April 2nd. That was the deadline. We have Representative Nadler saying that deadline still stands. Adam Schiff, who's been unhinged, in my opinion, that deadline stands. And President Trump responded with a tweet saying the problem is no matter what the radical left Democrats get, no matter what we will give them, it will never be enough. Just watch. They will harass and complain and resist the theme of their movement. So maybe we should just take our victory and say, no, we've got a country to run.
These are terrible, terrible people. I'm going to tell you what's involved in this. It has nothing to do with what you want to put out or not. You cannot disclose grand jury material. It is a crime. Now, they can say April 2nd, but Bill Barr and Rod Rosenstein are not going to jail because they have an unrealistic deadline. So they may have to go to court and get a court order so they can release them. That's what they had to do with Watergate. So they create these false impressions for the American people. They're like dishonorable salesmen or something. I mean, they're shysters. I mean, it's ridiculous to say to the American people, Barr is delaying because he wants to delay. He's delaying because it is very difficult. I don't know if it's 200 pages, 300,
400 pages,
okay.
Or whatever.
Very difficult to put out 400 pages with all the legal restrictions and not violate something. And you know if he violates something, they'll be on the other side. Put Barr in jail. He put out grand jury material and didn't get permission and ruined so-and-so's reputation.
Yep.
Jeez, can we get back to some kind of sanity?
you and I were talking before the break. How is the president reacting to all this?
The president's reacting as you might expect. I mean, it was a burden on him. He functioned unbelievably well. Look at all we accomplished with this burden on him. I can't imagine what we're going to do now. I mean, it's unbelievable. However, the burden about worrying for his family and his friends, it's horrible. I ran many campaigns. The loyalty you have to the people who worked for you is tremendous because you know they put you there. All of a sudden, to see these people dragged through grand juries. I was in the White House 2 days after, and young people in the White House, young people, told me how terrible it was to get questioned by the special counsel, how mean they were, how discourteous they were, how they treated them like they were some kind of criminals. And all they were was a person, you know, who saw a document and was identifying a document. 4 or 5 hours, 4 prosecutors, 6 FBI agents. I don't think I've ever had like 10 people question anybody. It's usually an assistant and an agent and maybe one other person, and you treat them courteously.
Yeah.
I mean, the FBI is known for it. They could arrest the worst murderer in the world and they'll say, Mr. Smith, you're now under arrest. Thank you. Yes, sir. You're nice. They're nice. You call it verbal jiu-jitsu. Police teacher the police. Be respectful. Be nice. Calm everything down. You have less difficulty with the arrest. probably get the person to cooperate.
When you joined the case, one of the things you were trying to do was sort of change public perception about this. We've seen in polls people thinking that the investigation was politically motivated. One right here, 54% of the public believing that the investigation, the Mueller probe, I believe that says CBS News, 54% politically motivated, 37% justified. So my question is, how did you change that perception, number one? And number two, what do you think should happen now to John Brennan, James Comey, some of the people?
The first one was that was the only real change in strategy, and it was we had a two-tier defense. One tier defense is to Mueller, legal. So we have our report ready. Should he say anything critical, we're ready to respond to it and give you 5 reasons why he's wrong. That's the legal defense. And to try to work out so that he wasn't unnecessarily put into traps, which I think, thank God, we came through. We also have, we had a great legal team. Jay Sekulow, Jane and Marty Raskin, and Donald J. Trump.
He really runs point.
There were times where his legal analysis was as good or better than ours. It's like having having a fifth man, fifth woman on the team. But the second one was I recognized that you have to try this to the American public because the only thing they can do to him is impeach. There's no indictment here because he's the President of the United States. So in a way, we were conducting it as if it was an ordinary grand jury investigation. But it wasn't. The people who have his fate are the members of Congress. 54% say this is a politically motivated. They want to vote for impeachment. They'll go, goodbye. It'll be like a 70 majority in the House next time around. Like happened with Clinton and the unwise Republicans, who had a lot more to work with. They had actual perjury.
Yeah.
Because unlike what happened here, they walked him into perjury. Or he walked himself into it. In Trump's case, completely innocent, no collusion, no obstruction. They say, well, why is it so hard to represent somebody in a situation like that? Because we were representing him against totally contrived charges with a staff. I've never seen one put together like that. When he says 8 angry Democrats, you don't realize how rabid these people were. One of them was the counsel to the Clinton Foundation. Imagine if I was investigating Hillary with a counsel to the Trump Foundation. NBC, ABC, the Times, the Post. Get rid of him. He's unethical. Recuse yourself.
But John Brennan said he committed treason. What's going to happen to John Brennan and other people?
And the whole thing, investigating the investigators, does it turn in that
there are two levels. One is the public accountability, which is when you say that it's time for a really big apology. And Schiff, instead of apologizing, Schiff is doubling down and getting even more outrageous
it's getting worse.
He sends out letters to people. I don't think this man has any idea what the attorney-client privilege is. Someone should read the right to counsel clause in the United States Constitution to him. If the Constitution means anything to him. It's a letter that has to say he has no respect for the Constitution, like all the notes of lawyers, all the conversations of lawyers. I mean, it shows a ridiculous approach of people who are ignorant. I mean, I'll say this about the Mueller staff. They may have been politically biased heavily. Brilliant lawyers, great investigators, much more power than Congress. If they couldn't find it, why are we going to waste another $20 million on trying to find what isn't there? No collusion, guys, no obstruction. You know, it reminds me of the election. Remember the day after the election, the Democrats couldn't understand what happened. They were saying people were going to psychiatrists, and they had to get counselors for kids in school. And there must be a lot of guys, psychiatrists and women, who develop that expertise. I think they should all go see those psychiatrists again and get connected to reality.
Yeah, a lot of questions also people have about President Obama and what he knew and didn't know in terms of the justification for this investigation.
This is extraordinarily important, and they are trying to bury it. I mean, the left-wing media is trying to bury this as much as possible. It is vital for the good of our democracy and for the restoring of justice. This wasn't justice. Not just to the president, to the people they raided their homes in the morning, like they're terrorists. Put them in solitary confinement in order to break them, which is a Weissman specialty. I can show that the misconduct in this case goes back to things Weissman has done throughout his career. Harsh conditions of confinement to try to break somebody. I mean, this is what they do in prison camps. Making up crimes. Supreme Court reversed them 9-0 for making up crimes. Obstruction is made up. Campaign contribution is made up. Not a campaign contribution. It's a personal expense. Just go read the commissioners of the FEC. So we have to end this. My question is, here's a good focus. Who started this? It's not true. Didn't come down from the sky. Who started it? And then who propagated it, knowing that it's false? There are going to be answers to that. Yeah. And we can all speculate. Let's wait and see. But let's keep a focus on it.
All right. Rudy Giuliani, appreciate you coming in.
Thanks so much.
Mr. Mayor. Great stuff.
Former Democratic Maryland Congressman John Delaney, who joins us right now. Congressman, very good to have you.
Nice to be here, Neil.
The crisis at the border. Jay Johnson says, at least on this, the president's right. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there seems to be an uptick in the number of people trying to cross the border at this moment in time. So, you know, obviously we need to deal with that. We need to deal with what's going on in Central America. If we ever want to actually have a secure border, we have to focus on how destabilized Central America is. We have to focus on the southern Mexican border, which is a border that's actually much easier to control. And then, as I've said all along, we have to do smart things to secure our border.
So when the president talks about a wall and this crisis / emergency justifies it, you say what?
See, this is how I would do it, Neil. You know, I would take a very different approach. Border security is kind of a complicated thing, meaning in some places you use technology, in some places we need more people, and in some places we need barriers. So what I would do if I were president, I would negotiate a certain amount of money with the Congress, $2, $3, $4 billion, whatever that number is, and I would get experts in the room, and I would have those experts recommend the best way to secure a very large border that has lots of different terrain and, you know, lots of different situations. And I think what those experts would say is, you know, invest a couple billion in technology here and here and here. They would say put more people and more personnel in certain places, and they would probably recommend building physical barriers in certain places. And I would follow those recommendations, because what I would want to do as president is do the best thing for the United States of America and use our money as wisely as possible. And that's not what's going on right now, right? Because we have a political debate about a real situation at the border instead of actually focusing on what the problem is, how do we best solve it as Democrats, Republicans, independents, Americans, whatever the case may be, and what resources do we put against the problem?
Do you think some of those who are challenging you on the run for the Democratic nomination are too stubborn to acknowledge the obvious, that there is a crisis there, whether it's an outright emergency to warrant what the president is doing? I guess that's open to debate. But by ignoring it outright, they're only, you know, hurting themselves. What do you think?
I mean, look, numbers don't lie. And I think the secretary just said that we are going to see 100,000 people potentially be arrested at our border this month, which is higher than it's been in a while. So, again, numbers don't lie. So that means border crossings are up, arrests are up, and we need to deal with it. But, you know, that doesn't mean there aren't a lot of aspects to this problem. As I said, you know, I really think the situation in Central America, I mean, I was down at the border 2 months ago. My wife and I went down there with 14 law students that we took down for a week with a couple of law professors to help asylum seekers in Dilley, Texas, which is, you know, near San Antonio. There were 1,700 women and children in this facility. And if you listen to the stories that these women would tell you about what happened to them and their families in Central America, I bet every single one of your viewers would leave as well. So to me, it underscored the need to actually concentrate on what the real problem is, which is what's going on in those countries, work with Mexico to secure their southern border, which is a much easier border to secure because it's smaller.
Right.
And then obviously invest real money in our border, right? So you know, I do support more investments in border security on our border. I just want them to be the right ones, and I want them to be smart ones.
Congress, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up this latest Joe Biden controversy concerning Lucy Flores, a former Democratic candidate for Nevada Lieutenant Governor, who claims, and this is just out now, and the Biden camp is responding to it, that he made her uncomfortably touched her. And the Biden camp has come out to say they didn't know it at the time. They feel bad about it. But others have said, whether it's coming from the Me Too movement or what have you, that he shouldn't announce, that he shouldn't enter the race, that this makes him persona non grata with them. What do you say?
You know, Neil, to be honest with you, I haven't followed this story, and I'm not just saying that to avoid it. Yesterday, I got up, you know, at 6 in the morning to visit an opioid treatment center in New Hampshire. I had about, you know, 10 events all day in New Hampshire, and I got on a plane and flew to Iowa last night and I'm up this morning and I'm rolling out my Heartland Fair Deal, which deals with rural America and how we increase investments in rural America, because rural America has been drained of a lot of talent and a lot of investment capital. And I saw the headline, so I'm not saying I hadn't heard about it, but I literally didn't read one word about it. I mean, my response to these things is always, I have no reason to doubt the person who is saying it. But literally, I haven't even read a story about it, and I'm not trying to avoid it.
No, I understand, and I didn't
really
want to hit you blindside with it, but if it turns out that this woman's accusations are accurate, there are those in your party who say that Joe Biden should think twice about running for president. Do you have any thoughts in that regard?
Well, I mean, again, I don't even know what the accusations are, but they're serious enough to get a lot of attention. So if they're accurate, of course he should think twice about it.
Okay. Let me ask you, you're also a very wealthy man, over the years, a very successful businessman. It's a moving target trying to figure out how much you're worth, in excess of $150 million, I think it's safe to say. I don't want to get too personal with you in that regard. But some of your colleagues say rich guys like you should pay a wealth tax, or at the very least higher taxes. What do you think of that?
I think I should pay higher taxes, but I don't think a wealth tax is the right way of going, right? It's very complicated. It's hard to figure out. It basically gives the government the ability to kind of take assets, which you never know where that can go. And it's not clear it's constitutional. So I think it's kind of a silly fight to some extent. I do think, however, high earners should pay higher taxes because we need more revenues to get our fiscal trajectory under control. And the way I would do it is actually pretty simple. I think there's a big loophole that exists right now between the capital gains rate and the ordinary income rate. You know, we have a low capital gains rate because of an historical kind of anomaly when we had to encourage people to invest. You cover markets, Neil. You know markets really well. You know the markets are super liquid, and anyone with any resource is investing. And if they don't invest, it's because they're afraid, not because taxes are too high. So I would do things like the Buffett rule and do things to close the difference, because I don't think the investor class should pay half in a tax rate as the working class. I think that's just structurally unfair in our society. And I would focus on that,
you would hike the capital gains tax, right?
Yeah, or have a minimum. You know,
Okay.
I would favor a low capital gains rates for certain types of behavior. You know, like I'm rolling out this plan for rural America. If you invest in distressed communities, I'm great with giving you a lower capital gains rate. But I think for, you know, doing leveraged buyouts, you know, those investors don't need a lower rate than you pay on your taxes, you know, at Fox.
All right. John Delaney, very good catching up with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.